Namaste and welcome. The Nobel Prize of 2022 in Physics has been awarded to two scientists who have made us understand something called entanglement theory in quantum physics better. Now wait, you might be wondering why we will be talking about this on the Festival of Bharat talk show. Well, this is extremely relevant as it helps further prove Vedantic principles. Our guest speaker today will explain in a friendly and simplistic manner how. Archana ji runs a YouTube channel called Temples, Books and Science. She has a talent for connecting disparate subjects such as quantum physics and Vedanta. Recently, her video on Nobel Prize for Physics and its parallels to Advaita Vedanta have garnered more than 3 lakh views. Other than this, Archana ji has worn many hats. To mention one, she was a global head of Cognizant's volunteering program, which grew to become the world's largest corporate volunteering program under her leadership. Her achievements was recognized both nationally and internationally. Welcome and namaste ji. I hope you are well.
Namaste, Payalji. Thank you for inviting me.
It's our honor, and I'm so looking forward to this conversation because it's going to bring out something from those the audience members who are scientific and need that extra reassurance of our philosophy. I think this is a really important conversation to have today. So let's just get straight into it. My first query on this idea of quantum physics is actually physics. Why, the meeting point between physics and Vedanta, physics being all about the material universe and Vedanta being about consciousness. How do they meet?
Okay, that's an interesting question, Payalji. First of all, this distinction between material universe and consciousness is slowly breaking down in physics. This concept of objective material universe with space, time, planets, and stars being independent entities governed by the laws of physics was introduced by Newton. The universe functions independently based on these laws of nature, and there is no need for consciousness, and there's no need for God either. This was the initial view of physics, initial view of science. And as we understood, delve deeper into science, this view slowly started breaking down. Even this view of reality, which Newton presented, this classical physics view of reality, started to be questionable. First of all, if you look at classic physics, there are many things in classical physics which point to the existence of an intelligence and intention behind the creation. Take, for example, let's begin with Big Bang. That's how our universe began, science claims. And when you think of Big Bang, you think of it as an explosion, a chaotic event. Suddenly, an explosion happened, and that's how all the galaxies, the stars, all of them were created. But if you look at Big Bang, it's been fine tuned for the creation of the universe. If Big Bang was 0.0001% more forceful, more stronger, there would be no stars, no planets, and no life on Earth. And let's look at the first set of forces that were created, the four fundamental forces of physics that was created immediately after the Big Bang. And they also seem to be fine tuned for life. For example, if these fundamental forces, electromagnetic force, gravity, strong nuclear force, and weak nuclear force, varied even by 2%, there would be no stars, no planets. And if they varied by 0.5%, there would be no life on Earth. And then how the universe began with a very low entropy. Entropy is another concept in physics which talks about the orderliness of anything. Entropy measures the orderliness of anything. And when you look at something which is very well ordered, what would you think? It has been arranged by someone, right? Because chaos is the natural state of things. Things tend to get messy. That's what entropy measures. And what they found is at the beginning, when the universe began, The entropy was so low. It was so low. It is like that kind of entropy is possible only, it is not almost close to impossible to happen naturally. It's only possible if somebody has arranged it that way. The probability that a low entropy universe, the universe began with such a low entropy, is 1 in a trillion, billion, trillion. It is close to an impossibility. So this is also boggling the scientists, because our universe is looking more like a fine-tuned machine, like a rocket or a watch or a sophisticated machine where every parameter is fine-tuned. Even small variations in these parameters will cause the collapse of the universe. So this kind of fine-tuning is totally unexplainable by mere chance, by mere quirk of, by chance this whole thing happened. It's unexplainable. That's why many scientists are now proposing this theory called anthropic principle. Or anthropic principle states there's a purpose for this universe. Universe is not a random occurrence, but there is a specific purpose for it, and the purpose is to create life. So this is what physicists are saying, not philosophers, not people of religion, but physicists, that there is a purpose to the universe, and the purpose of the universe is to create life. And now you just see how closely it aligns with our karma theory. What does karma theory says? Why was the universe created? It is for all living beings to exhaust their karma. So without living beings, there is no purpose to the universe. And now physics also is coming to that conclusion. And more than this, after Newton, there were many great discoveries in physics. The second big breakthrough in physics was Einstein's theory of relativity, which kind of crushed this notion of objective, static universe. You know, when you travel at the speed of light, time itself slows down and space shrinks in size. So this kind of what the universe is, if you say what is the size of this laptop which I'm looking at, it will vary. It has no specific value. It would depend on my perspective. If I'm traveling at a certain speed, this laptop will be smaller, and if I'm static, this laptop will be larger. And it's not an illusion. That's the way universe is. Things are smaller and bigger depending on the perspective of the observer. So, with Einstein's relativity itself, consciousness and observer slowly began to show its face. Although Einstein never said a conscious observer is required, it became evident that the shape of the universe is determined by from where you're looking at it, the perspective of an observer. And then quantum physics happened, and it brought consciousness right to the center of physics. What quantum physics showed was that until you observe anything, it does not exist. Particles at an atomic level, at a particle level, electron proton level, they do not exist until they are observed. So until they are observed, they are just some ephemeral wave. We don't even know what form they are in until we observe them. And our act of observation brings particles into existence. And how much more central can consciousness become to physics than this? So definitely there is a lot of relationship between physics, which once upon a time dealt with only the material world, and consciousness, which we all thought was only the forte of Vedanta, but it's now very much becoming a part of physics.
Incredible. So, what are the similarities between quantum physics and Vedanta? Can you just list out, what you would say are the similarities?
Actually, Ailey, it is so obvious in the sense it's not like you have to take a leap of faith and do some deductions to arrive at the similarities between quantum physics and Vedanta. It is so obvious that if you like, anybody who knows Vedanta and learns quantum physics, they can make this connection. In fact, many Western scientists are now talking about this uncanny correlation between quantum physics and Vedanta. Now, first, let us look at what quantum physics is saying. One of the first and the most basic experiments of quantum physics is called double slit experiment. And when they did this experiment, that was when they discovered that particles do not exist until they are observed. The act of observation, when a conscious being observes, only then particles come into existence. You take a minute for this to sink in. That is, the founders of quantum physics made this statement: nothing exists until it is observed. Can you, when you listen to the statement, does it not bring to your mind all the Vedantic Mahavakyas we have heard? What does Vedanta say? Vedanta says consciousness is the fundamental principle of the universe. Universe is consciousness, and everything arises in consciousness, exists in consciousness, and resolves into consciousness. And there is also one peculiar feature of consciousness. When you say this whole universe is created in consciousness, when you think of a process of creation, we normally think of somebody like I say, I build a building. Then first I have to plan it in my head. I have to acquire the right knowledge and actually construct it, right? So I'm an active participant in the creation. That's how we think of creation. But Brahman, the relationship between Brahman and universe is different. Brahman creates the universe by simply witnessing it. His role in creation of the universe is being a witness to the universe. That is why this consciousness, this Brahman, is called Sakshi Chaitanyam, the witness consciousness. And in Vedanta and in physics, the same questions have arisen. How can anything be created by simply observing it? How can you look at something and create it? So, if you just think back for a moment, it happens every day in our life. In Vedanta, this is the analogy they give. When you're sleeping, when you dream, when you have a dream, the whole dream universe is created by you. But what did you do? What was your active role in creating the universe? The only reason the dream exists is because you see it. The mere act of witnessing the dream brings it into existence in your mind, right? That's the relationship between Brahman and universe. The mere act of witnessing the universe brings the universe into existence. Now, this is the symbolism of the sleeping Ranganatha. In my part of the world, in South India, he's a very he's a very loud deity. Ranganatha sleeping on his snake bed. He's supposed to be sleeping in Yoga Nidra. His sleep is called Yoga Nidra, and because of his sleep, the universe is created. It is believed. So it is just like Vishnu is sleeping and dreaming up the universe. It is the same analogy, this analogy of Advaita Vedanta that is represented in the sleeping Vishnu, in Vishnu in Ananta Shayanam. And can you see the uncanny similarity between quantum physics, which says the mere act of observation brings particles into existence, and Advaita Vedanta, which says Brahman is merely a Sakshi. The creator of the universe is the Sakshi Chaitanyam, the witness consciousness who brings the universe into existence. So this is not the only resemblance, Payalji. What I also want to tell you is now this finding of quantum physics, many scientists are confused by it. They don't know what to make of it. In fact, the most brilliant mind of our times, Albert Einstein, did not agree with the findings of quantum physics. He said, how is it possible that things can come into existence only when you witness it? Do you mean to say that the moon does not exist when nobody is seeing? This was his question. So, but if you were a student of Advaita Vedanta, it is very easy to resolve all the paradoxes of Advaita Vedanta if you look at it from the lens of, you can resolve the paradoxes of quantum physics when you apply the principles of Advaita Vedanta. If you begin with the premise that the whole universe is consciousness and the entire material world arose from this consciousness, and this consciousness is only a witness, then all these paradoxes which we come across in quantum physics can easily be resolved.
Incredible. Wow. Do you know what? It's incredible because I'm just smiling within, saying things that you inherently, if you follow this culture, feel when it's been proven with science. It just gives you that extra encouragement, doesn't it? So it's just mind blowing, honestly, what you're saying. So let's move on to the next question, which is, of course, what you've been just talking about, nothing exists until it is observed. This was founded many decades back, if I'm not mistaken, right? But the Nobel Prize winning physicist last year, they have discovered something further, and which does it bring it close? Does their discovery bring it closer to the Vedantic concept of Brahma, Satyam, and Jagan Mithya?
Yes, that's another interesting question. So, as I mentioned in my just a few minutes ago, Einstein refused to accept the principles of quantum physics. He said, "How is it possible that things come into existence merely by observing them? That cannot be possible." So he said there must be something wrong with quantum physics. There is something about reality we are missing. There is something incomplete. It is not an entire, it is not a full description of reality, and we have to look further and see what we are missing. So one of the arguments he gave against quantum physics were this set of particles called entangled particles. What these entangled particles do is they have a very peculiar behavior. They're like twins, they're born together, and they are mirror images of each other. So if one of them changes its behavior, the other one will instantly know and change its behavior. For example, one particle is turning right, the other particle will turn left. That's how they are created, and that's how they are. That's the way they are. This is a prediction of quantum mechanics. And Einstein said, "Does this make any sense? Two twin particles, if they're separated by millions of light years, they know each other's states instantly and they change their behavior accordingly. How is it possible? Is it telepathy?" And Einstein's relativity proved that nothing can travel faster than the speed of light. So how can these entangled particles exist? It is not possible. So this was Einstein's argument. But strangely, what happened, as luck would have it, within few years, entangled particles were in fact discovered. They were also created in the laboratory. And entangled particles are now form the basis for quantum computing. Quantum computers are based on entangled particles. So this should have settled the argument. Quantum physics is right. Particles do not exist when nobody is watching. But it did not settle the argument. So there was another contention. Physics was divided into two set of scientists. One set of scientists who believe that quantum physics is absolutely right, and this is what defines reality. And there was another set of physicists like Einstein and Schrodinger who said, no, entangled particles may exist, but again, it's because we are missing something. This is little heavy to understand, but I think if you have to understand the context of this year's Nobel Prize, we need to delve deeper into this. So what entangled particles do is, if they are created together, and as quantum physics says, they don't exist until they are observed. So only when you observe one particle, the other particle will also come into being. That's what quantum physics is telling. And this set of scientists said it's not possible. These particles are created together. All their properties are already there when they are created, and we are missing it. Our observation is missing some important property of these particles. If we knew these properties, we will know that it will make perfect logical sense. It won't be weird like how quantum physics is suggesting. So let me give you an analogy to help you understand this. Let's say you're watching a magic show. Somebody is performing magic tricks on the stage, and you're fascinated. But why does it appear like magic to you? You don't know what he is doing behind your back. When you cannot see he's doing something, that's why it looks like a magic trick to you. If you were to walk up to the stage and ask the magician to explain how he's doing the trick, and if he explains it to you, it will make perfect sense, right? So that is what Einstein and others argued. That is, we don't understand it fully, and that's why it feels like magic to us. So the physics was divided into two camps, and there was no way to prove who is right. So how can you say there is a hidden information? How can you prove there is a hidden information when you don't know what you're searching for? And how can you prove that there is no hidden information? So it was a deadlock situation. Then another scientist called Bell came up with a theorem. Theoretically, he explained how it's possible to prove either of them. Like a set of probabilities and set of theorems he proposed, based on which, if you're able to work on these theorems in practically using experiments, you will be able to tell for sure whether there is a hidden information, whether some hidden information we are missing, or whether quantum physics is right. So this theorem was in existence, but there was no way. It was such a complex set of things which you had to do to actually put it into practice and set up an experiment. And to set up an experimental proof for this was very difficult. Nobody was able to do it. Then the current set of physicists who won the Nobel Prize for Physics actually did this. They used the Bell theorems and came up with an experiment. And using that experiment, they could prove comprehensively that there is no hidden information. What quantum physics says is true. Particles don't exist until they are observed. So they actually proved it experimentally. And for that only, they won the Nobel Prize. And as a result of this proof, what is the inference of this proof? What they have actually proved is that the world is not real. I want to say it again, the world is not real. So in physics, there is actually a clear definition for what physics means by real. If anything has to be real, it has to have two properties. First, it's called locality. So anything can move. You can change an object only by touching it. So we all know Newton's first law. It says every object will continue in its state of rest or motion until it's acted upon by an external force. So if I have to move something from one place to another, I have to apply a force. I have to touch it. If it moves on its own, it cannot move on its own. That is the principle of locality. And second is the principle of realism. What principle of realism states is things cannot exist only in my mind. They should have an objective existence. For example, if I'm looking at this monitor, then I go back to sleep in the night and I dream of this monitor. Which is the real monitor? The one which I'm seeing now is real because it has an objective existence, and the one in my dream is not real because it exists only in my mind. But what these experiments have proven is that the universe does not adhere to both these principles. At the level of fundamental particles, they do not follow the principle of locality, which means particles millions of light years apart who cannot communicate or touch each other are able to communicate with each other. That is, first, it does not follow the principle of locality, and it does not follow the principle of realism. That is, until you observe, until you see, particles don't exist. So, in effect, they proved that the world is not real. They proved Jagan Mithya, which Advaita Vedanta has been proclaiming all this while. Brahmaivahamidam Jagatcha Sakalam Chinmatra Vistaritam. So it's just a Mithya, it's just Maya. So we have been proclaiming it for 4,000 years, and hundreds of years of scientific research has led back to this wisdom of our rishis. And what a proud moment it is for all of us, don't you
It
think?
really is. It's yeah, it's it just makes you feel tingly inside, because it just feels like it again, like I said, it just emphasizes what our rishis were saying and where they got their knowledge without the scientific proofs, but where it came from. It's all, that's another question mark, right? Like they had the knowledge without the scientific proof. Where did they get it? Um, but yeah, it's just it just is just mind blowing, honestly. Let's move on to just, yeah, maybe just explain a little bit more about the the Vedanta and how it reconciles the paradoxes of quantum physics.
Okay, so now let us look at the basic principles of Advaita Vedanta. First, it says the entire universe is consciousness, and the whole universe exists in consciousness. So the first question that arises is, how can consciousness create anything? So most of the things which we see in this world are not conscious entities. So you're saying if I'm saying everything is conscious, then this table must be conscious. Everything which I see must be conscious, but that's not my experience. Only a few beings in one corner of the universe seem to be conscious. Now, for that, let us go back to our dream analogy. In our dream, we create this whole dream world. There are many things in our dream. There are objects in our dream. There are non living things in our dream. But what are all they made up? What are they made of? They are actually made up of our consciousness. They do not have any other materiality other than our consciousness. So, this dream analogy of Vedanta clearly shows that although consciousness is consciousness, there can be non conscious entities born out of this consciousness. And second, when you look at when you are dreaming, let's say, what is it that gives existence to your dream? Why does the dream world exist? It exists because you're seeing it. You just take a second to think about it. Can there be anything in your dream that exists and you don't see? It's not possible, right? The question itself is wrong. Things in your dream exist because you're seeing it. Let's say you get into deep sleep. After dreaming, you're going into deep sleep. What happens to the dream world? All those mountains, rivers, peoples, creatures that you created in this dream world, what happened to them? They just disappeared. That's all. Why did they disappear? Because you're not seeing it. Your seeing is essential for the existence of the dream world. And that's what quantum physics also has shown. An observer is essential for creating the universe. For creating every fundamental particle, an observer is essential. And in effect, for creating the universe, the observer is essential. And you may ask, you may think, why, how can, okay, Brahman, the all pervading consciousness principle, has created the universe? How can one human being, a puny little human being in one tiny corner of the universe, look at things and bring particles into existence? How can his or her observation bring particles into existence? That seems to be a giant leap. Like, that doesn't it looks like you're connecting two disparate things. But again, if you want to understand this, you have to go to the highest teaching of Advaita Vedanta, the Mahavakyam. What does Mahavakyam say? Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. Tattvamasi, you are that Brahman. Prajnanam Brahma, consciousness is Brahman. So you can't, finally, ultimately, what is liberation? Realizing that this all pervading consciousness is you. The entire universe exists in you, the consciousness principle. Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam Nijantargatam. It's all inside you. So your consciousness is not unique consciousness. It is that all-pervading consciousness which created the entire universe. So it is no surprise that your observation is able to bring particles into existence. So by simply applying the principles of Advaita Vedanta, it's possible to resolve every paradox of quantum physics.
Incredible, really incredible. It's just it just really for me, my journey just gives me more sense of wanting to make more effort in getting to a point, meditating more, and just going to a higher consciousness to understand this. From my own perspective, there's a scientific proof now, but which and the rishis have told us this, but this is our own personal journey, and I think if this conversation today, the intention is for all of the audience to uh, really feel more of a need of doing the things that which they have been taught maybe from childhood, that which are important, but giving them that extra sense of okay, this is really a worthwhile journey to go on and concentrate and focus on, right? So the last thing I would like to ask you is, which would I'm sure be boggling the audience, is about karma and this topic. What is your perspective of karma? How it works with us in, and the idea of consciousness and the witness. How does it all come together?
So, karma, according to Advaita, what is the cause of the universe is karma. We say that uh, consciousness creates the universe, but why is the universe created? I spoke to you, I told you about Ranganatha, right? Ranganatha is sleeping on a bed. And what is that bed? It is a snake. It's a snake with hundreds of heads, Adi Shesha. And that bed is supposed to be our karma, or the collective karmas of all living beings. So it is that karmas which put Ranganatha to sleep and causes this universe to happen. Because we all have to exhaust our karmas, universe is created. And as we exhaust our karmas, we accumulate new karmas. So it is an endless cycle. Both, according to Advaita, both good and bad karmas are bondages. So bad karmas are like, having a metal chain to a metal chain, and good karmas is like being chained to a golden chain, because both binds you, both keeps you part of this world of Maya, because you both have to be exhausted. So, what Advaita says is why we should do good karmas. There is no, as long as we are there in this universe, as long as we have this life, karmas are inevitable. Just by breathing, we are accumulating good and bad karmas, because so many germs die when we walk on the road. So, without us knowing, we are accumulating good and bad karmas. But why should we seek good karma, given that both good and bad karmas are bind us to this world of Maya? So, what good karma? Ultimately, moksha is realizing I am Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi. But in order to realize it, we'll have to get rid of so many countless janmas accumulated, what to say, ajnanam of countless janmas. And for that, we need so many good things to happen to us. We should get vivekam, vairagyam, we should get all the qualities of the mind which prepares us for this journey. We should get the right guru. We need to have so many things conducive for us in order for us to embark on this journey. So that is why for that we need good karmas. That is why it is important to accumulate good karmas and strive towards good karmas. Doing karmas for material success, Advaita is not a proponent for it. Says it's like you are getting more and more into bondage. Just by accumulating good karmas, you can go to heaven. Again, after you exhaust it, you come back to the same place. So it's like an endless cycle. You are still getting caught up in endless cycle of birth and death.
Mm, wow. We're going to leave it at this because you have given the audience so many little seeds and tastes, and you've, I hope you've added some sense of curiosity to the audience. And you on your YouTube channel have all of these conversations, all of these topics covered in great, beautiful detail. I have seen a few. And so, for to the audience, if you would like to know more, and I'm sure you would, please do visit Archana Ji's YouTube channel, which is called Temples, Books, and Science. And you'll see that in the description as well. And Archana Ji, thank you so much. This is such an eye-opening interview today, and I think it's an exciting future in my eyes. I don't know how you feel. Any last words before we end?
Yeah, actually, Payalji, I just wanted to make give one more example.
Mm,
Generally, like now we are talking about quantum physics and Vedanta, but you can also find stories which talks about relativity, which Einstein spoke about. So I just want to end with that example of that story. The first time I heard about relativity, I learned about relativity was through this series called Cosmos. It was created by this astrophysicist called Carl Sagan, and I was like 9 or 10 years old when I watched this serial. And because of I developed a lifelong love for physics after watching Cosmos, and I still remember vividly how Carl Sagan explains relativity. So he describes a set of twin brothers, twin brothers sitting in a park bench, and one brother takes a scooter and rides off at nearly the speed of light. He goes on a 5-minute drive at the speed of light, okay, and he comes back to the park bench and he finds his brothers sitting. He has not aged at all. He has aged only by 5 minutes, but his brother is now an 80-year-old man, wrinkled and old. So only 5 minutes has elapsed for this guy who was riding at the speed of light, and decades have elapsed for the brother. So that's how he explained that time flows differently when you're traveling at different speeds. And this I saw this on Cosmos, and few weeks later I was reading Amar Chitrakatha, and in Amar Chitrakatha there was this Puranic story of a king called Kakudmi and his daughter Revati. And Kakudmi is supposed to be like Revati was a very accomplished, beautiful girl, and her father wanted to get the best match for his daughter. So he travels to Brahmaloka, Brahmaji's abode, to ask him for advice whom he should get his daughter married to. So once he reaches Brahmaloka, he finds that Brahma is in meditation. So he doesn't want to disturb him. So he waits for an hour. And once Brahmaji opens his eyes, he asks Brahmaji, I have this beautiful daughter, whom should I get her married to? And Brahmaji laughs and tells him, this 1 hour which you have spent here is equivalent to thousands of Chatur Yugas on earth. So this one, you only spent 1 hour here, but thousands of Chatur Yugas have passed on earth. So none of the people you know are living anymore. Your kingdom is gone. The whole era has changed. So when I read this story, I found that it bore such a striking resemblance to Carl Sagan's twins. You just see how they have explained the passage of time. It's not that he stood there for thousands of Chatur Yuga and waited for Brahmaji. To him, only 1 hour had passed, but on earth, thousands of yugas had passed. So that was so similar to this twin paradox. So it is like, when you read these stories, you feel it is certain things you can't imagine. You can only write it if you know it. Imagine claiming the universe is an illusion. I mean, it's not possible to dream it up. You have to know it to be able to state it. Otherwise, you will sound crazy. It's so crazy that it's impossible to make it up. Even this story is like that. Unless you know, it is not possible to come up with a story like this. Don't you think, Payal?
Indeed. I think, you've just said it all. Like, the rishis, they knew, is this been proven now, right? And it's, wow. Let's leave it there, and I thank you again, Archana ji, for all your incredible insights, real gems. And like I said, I encourage the audience to go to Archana ji's YouTube channel. Thank you to the audience for watching, and please do like, share, and subscribe. Namaste to you all.
Namaste. We hope you enjoyed this Chitti Media content. Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.